This is part 2 of the introduction to the People's Club. I am Thomas Williams, the main lead and owner of the People's Club, and our goals is to teach a whole new way of living, life, business and family life. And today we will discuss the cooperative business model. This is not only a business model, but also a psychological and social model as well, and is teaching a program of a new way to be and also operate. The gist of it is in the shape of the flower of life, as seen here. And the People's Club is the center. And all the businesses and connections and network we make come off the center of the People's Club, and the intersecting circles all join and create a larger network of for and by the people. So it's the flower of life pattern, the People's Club at the center, which is the hub, and from there everything branches off it and essentially also a part of it. And it's the equivalent of source, or God, if you prefer that term. Source is the one, and all life and matter emanates from it, and so subsequently we are part of it. So we start off with the People's Club as the central hub, and we fund various projects and some businesses to expand or create new startup businesses. And many will think that is great, but with the current mindset and conditions surrounding them, all will slide down the slippery slope and fail, like before and now. And so we have to change, both us and it, to then bring in the change into the wider community. This is about energy flowing in a clockwise motion, which means it reaches us all. The previous system was anti-clockwise, and so energy was harvested by the few. So why are we changing the corporate model? Well, there are a number of reasons the current corporate business model doesn't work. You know, it's called corporate, but its real meaning is corporate. They are pirates on the land. Point 1, the CEOs, shareholders, upper management all cream too much out of the business, buying fancy cars, expensive all-paid first-class flights, hotels and meals. Excessive salaries and bonuses also goes to them. 2, middlemen or brokers taking another cut out of the sales product by arranging deals whereby they are making money, and in my opinion, largely under false pretenses. 3, the staff feel they have no value or input based on the wages earned. 4, staff have no desire to help or support the company outside of completing their hours they are allocated to work, and most just do enough within the 9-to-5 framework and just passing time to clock off. There's no incentive. 5, profit margins are set too high, which is largely to fund the groups in examples 1 and 2, the CEOs, shareholders, middlemen and brokers. So what you have left is an uninterested, unmotivated staff who are poorly paid, with a few selective people who put very little into the company by and large, and yet take out vast privileges and salaries, and then cream off it further by getting shareholder dividends. And people wonder why it all fails in predictable time cycles. It was designed that way. So how do we come up with a model that not only makes the business thrive, but the people within the business motivated and happy? Well, the first key is we don't repeat their methods. The key is at the top and the bottom. CEOs, shareholders, and various layers of management needs not only scaling down in terms of size, but also salaries. The margin between the top and bottom is too vast, and that gap has to be closed considerably. The question remains is, does anybody really need to earn more than $150,000 a year to live a comfortable lifestyle? Well, if you do, you've lost touch with reality. And the mindset is based on a comparative and competitive mindset of keeping up with the Joneses program, and is based on greed and not need. Now, some will say, well, I've bought an $800,000 to $1.5 million home and I won't afford it on that salary. But you, in essence, as a CEO, never bought that property, by and large anyway. It was the staff and the people who work for you who bought it. They're life force energy. It's not always the case, but you get my drift. Your staff and their labour bought you that home, or somebody else's staff and labour. Now, a lot of people will not see that concept laid out as it stands, as too few follow the to and from transactions of where everything goes or came from. But it is the staff labour who created or distributed the products that generate the income that the top end people all cream off. And we, in essence, have to create a system of you get out more of what you put in. Unlike the robber baron families like the Rockefellers or the Rothschilds. Did any Rockefeller ever dig for coal? Or lay railway lines? Or drill for oil when creating their wealth? No. So why should they have the vast amounts of wealth when the people who did the work have nothing? That thinking and ways has to change. The reality is all their funding for those enterprises came from the trust. Little to none was of their own money. And the days of CEOs earning millions a year while staff are on minimum wage or less than $15 an hour has to stop. Or even smaller companies, CEOs or owners earning $300,000 to $500,000 a year while staff are expected to get by on $9 to $10 an hour. And that has to stop also. If you analyze it, your own budget, people with money waste vast quantities of it, largely on materialistic items, 90% of which is not for their own need, but to impress, show off, or take the proverbial P against what's even worse, their friends, family, and neighbours. And we've all done it. It doesn't work for us. It's a debt cycle. But if everyone was honest, they would agree. And when analysed, that is exactly the gist of it all. And while some are wasting money on $100 per head steak meals, which are no better than the $30 ones, there are people who can't afford to buy a whole range of items that are essential to living. Basic food. Whilst many gorge yourselves on over-the-top priced meals, is that the way it should be? Is that civilized? Is that an advanced human species? Then these same people spend $200 to $2,500 a night in expensive hotels. It boggles the mind. $2,500 a night for something to sleep in. It's just somewhere to lay your head and rest. Some anyway. But there are people, many people on this planet, who have far less for a whole family of 4 to house, clothe, feed, keep warm or cool for a month than these people are spending to sleep one night somewhere. It's absolutely obscene, and it's so far out of touch with reality, it's just not funny anymore. It never was. There is statistical based evidence now supporting that happiness or contentment does not increase with ever greater wealth after earning around $75,000 to $80,000 per year. Look at the faces on Rockefellers and Rothschilds or Gates. Do they look happy? After over and above the $70,000, $85,000, the rest is based purely on overindulgence and overconsumption that is siphoning the world's resources at an alarming rate. And each and every one of us can see that now. So all that thinking of the old model and ways of being has to be changed. And it won't change by asking the government. It only changes by the actions of the people. And that's us. So here is how we would like the People's Club and businesses to operate. The People's Club sets up a new business or funds a failing one. And let's just say it's a clean water project and invests in that company. So what would we want in return? Well, we would want a load of new jobs to be created with salaries that are shared amongst the company. So the top people, not like currently, won't be earning 10 or more times what the lowest staff are, and somewhere nearer twice or 3 times at best. The company would have no shareholders in the old sense, but all staff would be the shareholders of the company. This then motivates the staff onto better productivity, as the more they put in, the more they get out. So the company would be 100% employee owned with equal shareholding for all to ensure equality and no finger pointing to the larger shareholders to take more responsibility or be subservient in any way because they own more. Promotions in the company to any position would be agreed from the bottom up, thus giving everyone closest to the required position an equal voice and also equal opportunities. Staff would be encouraged to attend most, if not all, of the company's meetings, as they are the owners. These meetings would take place within the building and not some expensive 3 or more day conferences in some lavish hotel. That eats away at profits and makes the products more expensive to the consumer to cover those unnecessary expenditures. Company profits could be set as a nominal agreeable figure. Let's use the example of 10%. This then can lower the cost of the product, and so it becomes more saleable to the general public. And excess profit can also be put back into the People's Club for further investment of other TPC companies who operate the People's Club way. That company then becomes the future role model for the rest. So say we have 5 or 6 companies now operating in the new cooperative way, and we are doing business with companies who are not operating that way. We then have a few options. One, we can train staff to go out and teach that company a better way and reduce their prices to fit inside of our budget and ways. Or two, we create a new TPC-based company to compete directly against them, and they will either jump on board or lose their share of the market. A cooperative model drastically reduces overheads. So you can not only pay the staff more, you can also reduce the cost of the product. And say, for example, we had a review of the costs of, say, 5 or 6 TPC companies, and spending appears to be in excess amount on, for example, stationery. So we would then approach those companies who we purchased the stationery from and reduce their prices to a TPC company level, or operate in a cooperative way. Or we can also set up our own stationery company and sell the products cheaper to the vetted TPC companies and outside. So essentially what we are doing here is we are creating the People's Club brand of how to operate in business a better way, with need, not greed. Outside companies can all join and become part of the TPC model, providing they take the same measures the TPC brand has. It is vetted and then approved or not, depending on their progress. This then lowers the cost of products or purchases, not only within the TPC circle, but also to the consumer. A consumer with more wages can afford to purchase more items and subsequently create or establish more jobs in far better working conditions than is currently employed. As each TPC model company expands into different fields of the market, so does the people power, but so does the people's personal responsibility, so does the people's way of life, and also their lifestyle. And it's all about building a network of companies all operating for and by the people. So we, the people, have our own brand and say as a representative of the People's Club. Now, to give you an example of the model protecting the inner circle, we'll use this. This is just an example whereby the People's Club is at the center, and then you would have a protection companies like business advisors, tax people, legal people, legal advisors, all surrounding and protecting that company to make sure it operates in its optimal way. And these companies that would surround the People's Club will also be accessible to the People's Club businesses as well. We would also, by people power, by building up various companies in various states and countries, put an end to the non-compete business model that currently operated globally by various rogue trade agreements and also various acts. If we create companies in a cooperative way with all happy staff who are paid more, that is going to be a draw to our type of company rather than theirs, and that subsequently will end their non-compete business model. Now, TPC vetted companies would also be encouraged to trade within the circle as much as possible. That is then guaranteeing the combined success of each company, and only trade outside where necessary. or when reviewing between the various companies where improvements can be made, suggestions can be made then to either add a certain company to the circle or recreate another one, whichever is required. This would create enormous benefits by trimming the greedy harvesters at the top and the snake oil brokers or middlemen, and giving it back to the real earners, who are the staff. Like I said earlier, most people do not need to earn over $100,000 to $150,000 a year. Most of it is wasted on excessive lifestyles to impress, and in most cases rub it in the faces of those who are close to us. It's not good, and it creates envy, bitterness and divisiveness, and is not conducive to a community-based spirit and or engagement. We would like to introduce a community again, where there isn't that vast gulf in people's lives and lifestyles, and create all have and no have nots. People can downgrade their homes. You not only have less stress, but you also have more money in your pocket. We've kind of forgotten that a home is where you reside out of the weather and against critters. It's not and never was a status symbol. They created that, and we have to change or remove it. And one of the proposals, the TPC Village project, can and will address that. We can build and sell homes at builder's cost plus 10-15%. So most the price of the homes would all be in the $100,000 range, which makes it more affordable to people. Or we can build mass tiny homes. Now, there are two stipulations regarding TPC companies. There will be no backdoor deals done in or out of not only the trust, but also TPC companies. Again, that is the old failed model. So please don't ask me or Kim for a cut of this deal or that deal to bring this, that, or the other to the table. We will not engage you in any way, shape, or form. We're going in a new way, not the old way. And if you want to create a business out of funds from the TPC with the goal of making yourself a millionaire, famous, or support an over-the-top lavish lifestyle, you are stuck in the old cabal co-pilot frequency of dog eat dog. And you must remember, for every millionaire, there are millions without the basics in life. Isn't it better to share? And this will be the key going forward. Think and act different. So we are essentially creating our own brand, our own network, no matter what the company field of enterprise is. And these are some of the ideals or goals of TPC companies. We do not compete with fellow TPC companies. We support them, and this ensures we all prosper. We vet those coming into the circle from outside, and we will be able to produce a working model in the future to present to them as evidence of our working model actually doing what it says on the tin. Staff to be supported in whatever way is required. Staff to be spoken to, not at. Run a staff ideas box in the company, which can then be discussed for merit in the meetings by the all. Staff should be entitled to at least 3 weeks annual leave plus national holidays. Sickness in staff, if long term, to be supported by the company from profits. You know, there's nothing worse than being off sick and then having reduced pay, which creates fear and more sickness. And the long-term goal of TPC companies is to reduce working hours also. We should not be working 5 to 6 days a week or 40 plus hours just to get by and or sustain a lifestyle. That is ultimately not sustainable. And we want all people to be living, not just existing. So the key for each business is to create a circle and other circles to intersect. And as we branch out with our model and businesses, we will create a whole new way of operating that is not only in business, but also life. A cooperative business model, with cooperative being the core word, replacing the core para competitive harvest business model. And our goal of competition would be internal only. So how can we run a thriving business with all staff happy and looked after, all working together with a common goal? Well, that would be our competition, that we are setting each other within the company. We set each other tasks to elevate each other. And our competition is to improve life, of setting inner goals that is not comparative to other people's goals. How can I improve my life in accordance with everyone else's life, which is symbiotic and not at the expense of others? And in doing so with this, it ends within our circle, the competitive mindset. It teaches people to share and care. It teaches people there is a better way of operating in life and business. And it all starts at the bottom. And the exercise of this is to provide a base to then expand out from. So this is the People's Club, an organization, while small in nature now, but it is known in many countries around the world where they show truth, honor, and integrity. And we are also connected directly to the trust. A trust that holds vast fortunes and resources that belongs to everyone on this planet, and we will be striving to deliver that globally as promised by the guardian of the trust. And it will be based on the needs of the people and society. Our world is in a mess now and has been for some time. Nothing on any level works too well anymore, and we all notice it, and yet only the few will do something about it. And our role is to engage the all. All have to have a say in how this planet should run, not the selective few who felt that they had to control us. And so the object of the People's Club is to ensure everyone is equal and everyone has a say, whether that be a shop floor worker, the manager or leader of a company, to encourage growth within us all, where we are all thriving and not competing against each other in life. Much of the world now needs a radical upgrading. Improvements in infrastructure, development, and general life skills need to be taught to enable us all to be more self-sufficient and personally responsible. We rely too much on the few to run our lives and dissolve our own responsibility by asking the government to fix things. Going forward, we are asking you all to fix things, not the government. We need to help the government. We currently treat our governments like our extended parents. They must look after us as though we're all still children. Well, it's time we grew up. As that and those actions will not solve the world's problems. Only we can. So the People's Club will be designed in a way where all participate, all benefit, and all thrive. The old model will be cast aside because that was based on greed and not need. Cutthroat corporate structure that harvested the businesses and the staff. And people will be encouraged to care and share for each other, not denigrate or compete against each other like currently. So what are the differences of a cooperative run businesses operating under the umbrella of the People's Club? Well, for staff, like I said, all will participate. All will be an equal part of the company. All will attend all meetings and all will have a say. And subsequently, all will share out the bonuses or profits of the company. And all staff to be supported, even in sickness. This then creates a motivated and happier staff, which then, for the leader of the company, brings in more productivity. The benefits for the staff is they feel they have a vested interest in the company. It's empowering, it breeds communities within the workplace, and it creates a happier workplace. People happier in the workplace also have a happier home life. And that's where the social side comes in. There's lots of divorces and relationships failing because a lot of people are unhappy in work. This can change that. So with pay increased due to trimming the excesses and overhead spent at the top of the companies, the need to work excess hours like the current slave system will not be required. Staff familiar with the knowledge of the People's Club Manifesto should be encouraged to do so and be paid for one day a week or month to send out one of your staff into your community and teach them the new way. This may also provide leads for takeover by the TBC groups for businesses who are struggling, and we can come in, change their businesses practices to a cooperative, which keeps all the staff happy because they're all staying in their jobs. Because if the business fails, they're all losing their jobs. And it also teaches them the new way of operating. And this then can also expand the TPC brand and network. As for the head of the company, they are tasked to support their staff as an equal, not to rule or dominate over them. No shareholders, no brokers, no middle management are required. That equals less overheads, cheaper products for the consumer, and more profit to share with the staff. Excess profits can also go back to the People's Club for others to develop their plans and projects. This is not a requirement, but doing so creates the caring and sharing package, and it expands the paying forward and the pattern of the flower of life. Companies can also create a pension or savings scheme as part of any bonuses that are shared equally also. It's their choice. And ultimately, we would want all TPC companies to reduce the working week from 4 days, not 5 or 6. This then creates a better balance between work and life and leads to less stress also. One of the people connected to the People's Club and THI has already started this program. and all the staff are happier, and they're all working. One particular company is working 4 days a week and earning more than when they were working for 5. Why? Because that owner adopted the cooperative model, stripped away the overheads and the shareholders. And what that person has found out, and leaders of these companies will find out, they will not be required to be in work all day, every day either. We're looking in on staff, making sure they're doing, in a cooperative model, working cooperative model, there's no need to do that. As the staff run the company for you, this then reduces the pressures and the stresses many heads of companies undergo currently. But just because you are appointed head of the business and or project does not mean you own said business or project. And the funds have come from the People's Club either. You are tasked with making and keeping that company successful. The ownership of the company is all the staff only. This stops the greed-based ownership issue and also encourages sharing. Now, the one thing we all struggle in life and tasked with is time. Never enough time to do this, that, or the other. This leads to skipping things in life, ignoring important social interactions, and not participating in life as you wish. This model will correct many of those issues once the company is in full flow. A fairer balance between work and life, particularly home life. Time management for the better will be essential going forward, as it allows for the more productive and creative life pleasures to then be enjoyed. So here are some of the guiding principles of, in a more visual format, of what we are intending with the People's Club. And so what is the cooperative business? Well, simply put, replacing corporate greed with humanity and nature's best interests. It's not about the few, this is about the all. The business transition from existing to evolving. Most businesses currently just exist. It's paycheck to paycheck. And then you have a disaster like we have now, and it all fails in all too predictable cycles. So the guiding principles of how the People's Club is run, with less overheads and happier staff, more productivity, then allows the company to evolve, not just exist. You have cooperative business hubs. These are your support structures around the business, which will be made available to all companies. We have the option of purchasing failing businesses and healing them, which keeps all current staff, or most of them anyway, in a job. We can then transfer that failing corporate business into a TPC cooperative and make it thrive. We'll then be tasked of providing a cooperative business network of TPC companies where they all trade together, they all support each other, and they all thrive. We would encourage trading within the network first, and only when we don't have a certain business available to trade with do we go outside, or we can put another proposal or project in to create our own TPC business, whatever field we're missing. So the guiding principles or the company would be 100% employee owned, with each employee owning an equal share. With no fat cats at the top, a fair wage structure is then essential and deliverable, and no minimum wage. Less hours for the same pay to allow more time for the individual and their family, thus immediately creating more jobs. They will have more leisure time. No unnecessary expenses, fancy cars, first class flights and hotels and all that. 3-day conferences. There's no need for it. And an equal voice for all staff. A limit to profits, for example, 15%. 5% of 15% could be a dividend paid equally to all staff. 5% of profits to staff's chosen local community projects. And 5% of profits to go back to the People's Club. Thus, other businesses can tap into the funding for future expansion and capital expenditure with low to zero interest rates, which then eliminates the need for legacy funding. The important aspect of the well-being and personal development of staff are fundamental to what we're doing here. Staff are to be looked after, not only pay-wise, but in general, you will get more out of them. To encourage community engagement with our resultant free time, which can be optional, but it can also be time for time and also paid by the owner of the company. With all staff having the knowledge of the People's Club and cooperative way, you can switch it around, do a round robin. One person or two people go out each week and talk to their community. Once it gets out of how much happier and how much more pay each staff member in a cooperative model is, you're never going to be short of people wanting to join. So then we're going to need to buy more businesses to keep them happy. And again, that then expands the network. The maximum size staff for a company would be 160. This is the historical maximum village size. And this then ensures community cohesion at each location. It's a lot more difficult once it gets over 160 to manage. Factory automation and office AI are not automatically built in. You have to be very careful with those two items going forward. It won't be the best for humanity if we allow it to run away, and it takes away jobs. And also a promotion from the bottom up, not the top, the bottom up. So these are the gist of the guiding principles. And this is the current model with the CEOs and senior leaders, team leaders, and the full team all at the top. But where's the staff? Bottom. The new way is the leader, senior leaders if required. Team leaders are certainly not needed. And then the staff. Staff are the top three layers. This then takes away the authority control into personal responsibility and equal control, and allows the company then to evolve and flourish using the process, the technical, the planning, and the engineering, all from the central hub. Like it says, evolution at work. So the Cooperative Business Hub is support for people with startup ideas, but little to no experience or existing businesses who want to transform. A business incubator service will be made available to help people who are unskilled in business to bring their ideas to fruition. We will and are preparing a fairly extensive set of files for all eventualities to do with the People's Club. And it will include teams of accountants, lawyers, business advisors, and also mentors who are trained to help people with implementation in the People's Club way. A startup pack could and will be created, which will include the business registration, bank account details, the legal structure, and everything required so the business is ready to go. Existing businesses could also access further our implementation teams to transform their operations into cooperative businesses. And this is where the teachers come in. People who are knowledgeable in the People's Club way that can then go out to companies who may be struggling and maybe not and teach them the new way. We can show the working model. It's going to make everyone in the company happy. New startups and projects, what are they? Simply put, the People's Club will support creative change from the smallest to the largest ventures. Is it going to create new jobs? Is it environmentally sound? Is it fiscally sound? And then we come to the healing failing businesses, of which unfortunately with the current environment, with this nonsense virus, a lot of businesses are going to fail. And if we can get the funds out quickly, we can save a lot of those businesses. It's a good opportunity. So failing businesses mean job losses that can be so damaging to a community and devastate local communities. So if the People's Club came in, there will be minimal restrictions for restructure to a cooperative model. The company's already established, and the most urgent thing is to save unemployment. It becomes more cost effective than a startup business, and tax and mainstream funding can be written off in the UK and also in the US using the failed corporate system against itself. Repurposing the right businesses will be key. So healing failing businesses, what are they? Well, simply put, consciously acquiring failing businesses, recovering them and transferring them to employee-owned cooperative businesses. That's how we expand the network and the brand for and by the people. It then creates a larger cooperative business network and trading standards, where we always buy from a People's Club business first if possible. All businesses out with our network must conform to our trading standards, which we will set. Fair trade between the People's Club businesses of cost plus 15%, be cost plus 10%. And if any business is not willing to meet our standards, we will recreate ourselves, thus removing corporate control. Our trading standards will be generated based on our agreed People's Club purpose and values globally, which is about to promoting the sharing of information and knowledge across all People's Club's businesses. It's not a case of this is my idea and this is my project. It gets shared. So that's the gist of what we're doing with the People's Club. And one of the key things is not all businesses will be for-profit ventures. You know, say one particular TBC state has built up 3 or 4 businesses, and all of them want to participate in a non-profit organization. They then have the option of the profits from the 3 or 4 businesses, which could then generate income for a non-profit business, depending on how those state participants which wish for it to operate by. It's their choice. Those in THI state groups will become TBC state groups, and they're responsible for their state. So if you're generating income, you potentially have more for non-profit avenues. For example, your profits from 3 or 4 businesses can then be funneled into creating a 5th business for a non-profit venture, say the homeless. So it's paying it forward, using the profits and building the network. And yes, the funds from the People's Club will chip into the overall expenses, but the key long-term goal will be for each state or each country to become self-sufficient as well. So with funds flowing between each group, this will be easier to accomplish than it sounds currently. The flow is important, as the previous model did not allow funds to flow. It just stopped at the top. It all went in one direction and away from the people in an anti-life, anti-clockwise motion. And it's our task and goal is to change all that, where the flow is in the pattern of the flower of life, and all give, all receive, and all thrive in a clockwise motion, and so guaranteeing all will receive, not just a few that went out of the back door. And essentially, the People's Club is not just a business or money generating venture. It's a full-on teaching program, and all who participate must get on board with the knowledge provided, as you are the teacher going forward, all of you. You cannot expect others or the government to guide you. That has failed us all, and it's up to us all to embrace this new way and teach and promote it far and wide. Teaching is yours and our way of paying forward. Funds supplied by the People's Club or the Trust is largely not to be paid back to Origin, but paid forward so you can then help others thrive. And so no need for the old shareholder-based model, as the staff are the holders and the share combined. To finish this piece up, this is the 10 stages of the People's Club. The introduction was stage 1, which we did a few months ago. This is part 2 of the business guidelines, how the People's Club will operate, staff development, the structure of businesses and support structure required, like taxes, law, business advisories, mentors, etc. Stage 3 is already underway, discussions of a round table nature of core topics to do with expanding the TPC companies, businesses, network, and also of life improvements which should we invest in first: shelter, food and water, teaching, energy. Part 4 will be new ways of implementing and improving part 3. What needs restructuring? Do we purchase existing businesses or create new ones? And all this can be done before funding, the planning of which. Should our state or country groups get ready, we can then apply for grant funding from the government to fund the projects whilst we're waiting for the trust. We, the people, don't take advantage of those grants, and every dollar in grants that we claim for the People's Club for the projects is $1 less for these foundations, Clinton et al., otherwise, that are claiming millions a year that they don't need, but we do. And we'll take those millions of dollars and put it to better use. 6 will be all about, by that point, we will be creating the brand via the cooperative model. We will have then working models in various states. 7, we'll set up committees assessing what are the social impacts in terms of jobs and the environment and what will be required to go forward. We always must go forward. We cannot rest on our laurels. 8 would be involvement in and working with local government, of coming up with new ideas of how to run in a better way each department in conjunction with our cooperative model, because this cooperative model can also be workable in government. 9 would be working with your local council levels, TPC, people working with local council levels, presenting new ideas and implementing them, also proposing them, and implement and present new ideas then to the government. And the long-term goal of the People's Club is to build up the people as the brand that is for and by the people. Nothing more, nothing less. And ultimately to have TPC candidates in the local and national government and or prevalent committees. These are our goals and ideals, and it's up to all of us to take that forward. This has been a presentation of the People's Club. My name is Thomas Williams. Hope you enjoyed it.